want to take roll call?
Absolutely. Tom Flannery.
Here.
Karen Holderson.
Here.
Jeremiah Kuchenberg.
Here.
Bill Levy. Here. Jason Martin.
Here. I have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
So the move second to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Welcome visitors. Thanks for coming. Doesn't sound like we have any blue cards today, so we might have to talk about the rules, but appreciate you being here. You ready for board reports?
Our first report tonight is from our teacher leader program leaders. I'm putting up their show, and they have the tour.
Isn't it cute?
Jesse and Genevieve.
Alright, so it's our lovely good time of the year again, and instead of telling you guys what we've been doing, like we have every year, we're still doing all of those things. But this year we took a different approach, and we spent a good amount of time really diving into what does our program contain. If you want to flip the next. We started out with how do we make sure that we have a solid program in place for our teachers and for our leaders in the program. So we really stuck to this graphic. So how do we build a firm foundation and then build up to our house? So we looked at each level of these pieces so that we are building the best program that we can have right now for our teachers. And go to the next one. So how did we go about this? We didn't just pull out some lovely things that we want to make sure that we are doing. We used this continuum of instructional coaching program development that came from the New Teacher Center, which we partnered with throughout this time. And within that, there are different continuums.
I think you're talking about this one.
I think I'm talking about that one. There are different continuums that we can look at. And I'll let you kind of walk through that.
So, we started this journey at the beginning of the year, really like, let's just evaluate what we're doing, and oh boy, this is a lot of work. So it's very similar to the process that we lead teachers through, that we reflect on our practice, we evaluate data, we make action steps, we implement, and we go back and reflect and go all back over it again. So just to kind of walk you through that cycle, first was a lot of reflection, which was great because we were able to identify things that we have already in place. And really there was consensus building, so of where we're at, but then also when you look at the continuum, it kind of helps guide where we really are, and just not where we think we are. And so this is just a snippet. Actually, this first piece that we're walking through is from that foundation that Jesse referenced earlier. So then we went into a process that we've used many times before, stating what is your evidence and where is that evidence in an evaluation. So in the continuum, we kind of assessed where we were. There's no like, oh, this is really awful, but there's a lot, like the way that they grade it. So there's always room for improvement within the document as well. So even though we circled innovating, we walked out for this indicator with probably about 12 action items that we still wanted to work on, just to kind of finesse and bring it forward. So that's our assess step. And then we look at all of our data. And so we worked to just, oh my gosh, process. So much processing all of that, and then try to decide where we were going to start, because that's the hardest part. So prioritizing and also acknowledging that we do good things, even though when it gets frustrating and you don't think things are working the way they want them to. So after analyzing, we did our favorite part of color coding. So, yes, just working on a plan. So, in this plan piece, we came back to the big group, so with the full admin team, Danny brought forth a process for us to help kind of see where we wanted to go to prioritize next steps that we were gonna work on. So we have a plan for the rest of this year and next year, cause it's just gonna take a while to kind of get through all the things that we wanted to do. So that's where we're at right now.
So, we want to also, we don't wanna make this a one and done process. So, should we have looked at an evaluation like this a few years ago? Probably, that wouldn't have been the worst idea, but we didn't. So now here we are. So every 3 years, we wanna repeat the same process. So right now, we're just looking at the continuum. Where are we? What do we need to do next? Spend a couple of years implementing the action plan, reviewing it, taking some time and making sure that our changes are happening. And then again, in year 4, or the 3rd year after that, is just go back to the same process. So what are our next steps to keep moving us forward? What questions do you guys have?
I'm assuming that was a pretty time-consuming process.
Which part?
Yes.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think, so the program leaders, like, on paper, are the superintendent and the 2 instructional coaches. So we sat down, hours.
Yeah.
It probably took us
Months.
a couple months of good chunks of time to work through all the indicators. And then a couple hours of admin meeting to process. And then, we meet for a couple hours at least once, we're averaging about once a week to just work on these next steps, so, yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming since you want to repeat it, that it was definitely worth the time that you invested in.
Absolutely.
And it should be easier.
The next.
That is our hope.
The next time.
Yes, we know where we're starting and then what we want to do and have a plan in place about how do we want to go through it again. So-
In that previous slide, it said something like preparing for reevaluation for the next year.
Yes.
What is that? What does that mean?
So what that really would look like is where was that continuum the very first time we did it? And then what's the progress we made towards that goal? And so if we're feeling really confident about some areas and we have the evidence to back that, do we want to focus our time evaluating those areas? Or do we really want to look at those places that we weren't seeing a lot of growth and progress? And we want to keep pushing that one forward. So how that unpacks is just really how these next couple of years would go.
So then it's kind of just prioritizing essentially.
Essentially, it's prioritization. Yep.
And what they're not saying that I think is probably obvious, but I'll point it out, this is layered on top of the work that they've been doing every day for 7 years now. This was an extra process, and well done.
The buy-in keeps getting better and better from everybody.
So it's just kind of a way of life. This is just what we do and
And the
teachers,
Yeah, the evaluation of this too also helps that also, because if our program is well laid out and we have these things in place, then it's just easier to just have it be a way of life for everyone, showing the value of it, but we've stopped to think about how that foundation is set, because then it's really not a hard conversation.
and a lot of the practices, and we share everything with teachers for sure, but we're also developing a web presence so then people can look at what does coaching have to look like at Alburnett? What can I expect if I'm in the classroom? What can I expect if I'm a teacher leader? And we're in the process of building that out right now too.
With the amount of time spent with Danny with this process, how much of that is gonna have to be a repeat to get him up to speed?
That's a good question.
It is a good question. I think some of the work that we did ahead of time might I look to see it as a place to fill him in nicely about what's been going on. As time goes on and we wanna reevaluate things, might be a nice commitment for him to get to know the program too.
We started this process in what, September?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
so.
And a question that we frequently were asking each other is what would it look like, or
Oh, what would it be like if somebody left? And then
We've had
surprise.
three of you.
we had two conversations about what would we want documented better,
Yep,
so that if somebody new came in, it would just be there. And then, of course, midway through it became, okay, the
Yeah.
process is ready.
And now it's really, like this, it works out well, because where we're at in like our task list is working on the coaching end, and now we're gonna be prepping for another coach. So, just, it's been a good fielding question to hold the perspective of what needs to be visible for people.
I can't believe it's been 7 years.
I know.
right? It's kinda crazy.
I can't believe it. It's very exciting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Curriculum targets.
And tonight, so we're moving on to administrative reports, and we're gonna start with our 3DE presentation from our junior achievement representatives, Erin and Christine. I have your slides queued up as well, so you can lead me however you want.
Perfect. Well, we certainly, I'm gonna have Erin, this is Erin Kurt.
Hey there, nice to meet you.
She's our Senior Vice President of District Operations at Junior Achievement of Eastern Iowa. Truly appreciate an opportunity to come and give some additional color around what is 3DE. One of the things that I'd like to preface our presentation with is that you're not gonna see 3DE in any other high school here in Iowa, other than at Cedar Rapids Prairie. They're the first two high schools, Alburnett and Cedar Rapids Prairie, in the entire state to take on this next step and this journey. In large part because of our comprehensive partnership and our longitudinal evaluation work. Those are anchoring, foundational anchors for us to take that logical next step in student learning, experiential learning, and 3DE brings that new innovation to us as a tool to be responsive to kind of where education is going, and listening to what Dr. Trimble and others here at the district are looking to achieve. And so Erin really is our subject matter expert, and I asked her to kind of take you through the journey of education for every dimension of life, 3DE.
Great. So first, as we go through this, we tried to keep it brief, which trying to get this concept, Dr. Trimble is laughing, into a 5-minute presentation is just almost impossible. So Dr. Trimble and Brian went with us in November to Potomac High School to see it, and Jesse and I went to Atlanta in April. That was, no, it was this month, last
It was
month?
last month.
Okay, whew. I was like, oh, was that just earlier this month? So, so that we could see different evolutions of this, because it is so difficult to describe. So if in any of these slides you have questions, please just stop me in the moment, but also know that you have good resources here at the district to ask as well. So 3DE is actually a product of Junior Achievement. It's kind of a, just like we have classroom-based programming here at the district, and we have for years, this is another instructional model opportunity that Junior Achievement provides. So it is under the Junior Achievement umbrella, but it stands for the 3 dimensions of education. So that's what 3DE stands for. 3DE came about because it was a challenge that some of the schools, and it started in Atlanta, that they were challenged that they needed a different way to educate their students in terms of relevance and application. And they were asked, the local Junior Achievement Office was asked by some of the school districts, rather than recreate the wheel, what options do we have? And Junior Achievement has always been known for our partnerships with businesses. And so they took that and expanded it into a much deeper experience by creating the 3DE model. So it's not a separate program per se. It's not like the JA Economics for Success program that we've had here. It is actually integrated into the core subject areas so that the competencies, which you'll see in a minute, are actually integrated into all of the topics. So when they're in their English class, they might be learning about those themes that the case study might be presenting. So that's kind of a very high-level overview of the idea behind why 3DE was created. The reason that the Atlanta school districts asked junior achievement to participate are some of the statistics that you see on the slide. They were seeing increased absenteeism, lower graduation rates, lower post-secondary enrollment, and so 3DE, when they started implementing this instructional model, they immediately started tracking how were the students performing both in school and then beyond the high school to see how they did in post-secondary options. And across the board, they immediately saw pretty significant increases in graduation rates, post-secondary enrollment, increase in, you'll see reading and math. And the goal is that they at least, with the 6 competencies, that they have a mastery of those concepts. And there are 6 of them that over the 4 years of high school, they advance every year in the level of understanding and mastery for those competencies. We will do this same analysis with the students at Alburnett. So we'll be able to track specific graduation rates, efficiency. Here at Alburnett, the entire school would be included in the population. College community, for example, it would actually be a subset group that will be participating. So about 150 of their students as freshmen would start out of their entire 450 freshman class. So a little bit different. Alburnett would be the smallest district to participate in 3DE, although there is one, I think in Indiana, that is just going to start this coming school year. So Alburnett would be a year behind, since next year would be a planning year. Okay. So what does 3DE actually do? So it takes case studies, and there are 6 case studies, both freshman and sophomore year, and it integrates those, again, into the core subject areas for all students here at the district. And it uses those case statements and studies to demonstrate application for what they're learning in their subjects. It helps them understand, for example, Home Depot is one of the national case studies. So there are 3 national case studies and 3 local case studies that we would implement. Home Depot is one of the national ones. And so they're given a challenge. I think the Home Depot one is they're asked to design a kitchen display that would draw customers into the store and interact with customers. They're always given ways to present the information. They're taught how to analyze the information, analyze their market, and then try to meet the challenge, the goal of what that particular case study is asked to present. So they might be learning about market research in one of their classes. They might learn some of the vocabulary words in their English class. They might do some of the actual math analysis in their math class. So that's how it all gets broken out into some of their different core subject areas. Anything so far that you want to?
I think back to 2 months ago when the administration brought back the survey and some of the things that stood out the most as far as opportunity areas. The 3 that came to mind were voice, choice, and relevancy. And with respect to how students choose to navigate problem solving and come to conclusions, how they see it and interpret it and see how it applies to their everyday lives, voice, choice, and relevancy inherently is an integrated component of how kids are built to learn through 3DE.
Yeah, when we were at Potomac, one of the students, one of his biggest takeaways was He was so quiet early on that when he spoke up in class, you never heard him. But then by doing his presentations through 3DE, I think he was a junior when we heard him speak. He spoke up, he was presenting to us. I mean, that was mind-boggling to him that he would have gotten to that point. So talking about voice.
Finding his voice,
Yeah.
finding their place in school.
Yeah.
And I think each time they have a case challenge, they're coupled or combined with other kids, and that is remixed for the second case and the subsequent, all 6 are different subgroups. And so those cohorts become different partners and force kids to work in a team with people they might not otherwise might not naturally hang with, know, or spend time with and learn from. It's part of the journey.
Go to the next slide. Some of the key points about the case studies are here on, they're authentic, they're real life business cases. So that's where the national ones are put together by the 3DE national team. And then it's our job to find and develop the local ones with support from the national team. So we might partner with Collins Aerospace or the United Way or Alliant Energy.
Right.
So those are some options on who we might have partner for our local case studies. But there's always the collaborative groups that Christine mentioned. And again, they change with every case study, so they have to work differently every time. They also have different outcomes. Sometimes it's a visual presentation, sometimes it might be the outcome is different every time. It might be an artistic rendering because of, for example, the Home Depot example. It's always a protagonist viewpoint, so they have to come up with a strategic idea, but there's also always something missing. So the students never have all the information that they need, so they have to make strategic decisions about it, and then also it gives them, there's not a perfect answer. And so it's more the argument that they're making for it as opposed to having the ideal outcome specific to that project, because something was missing as a part of it. It also makes for very interesting debates. The launch teacher actually selects the top 3 or 4 presentations for that particular case study, and then those are presented to community folks, whether if they're the local case study, they're from that particular company, or if they're from one of the national case studies, we would invite them if they're local, if they have a local presence, but otherwise we get representatives. And they actually pitch to those individuals and companies and see which of those 4 are the best. And that's kind of a source of pride for the students that they were on one of the teams that won one of the case studies. The rest of this shows just the integration on how it works. So at 9th and 10th grade, there are 6 case challenges each year. At 11th grade, they do 4 case studies, so a little deeper dive into them. And it culminates at 12th grade in a capstone project. So it's building upon itself each of the 4 years that the students are in school. More support, obviously, when they're younger, and kind of gives them more independence and more self-direction when they get older. And then my favorite slide, I think, is the last one. So this shows you the core competencies, and it's very small on the screen, so it's good you have your packet. So that lower colored bar at the bottom shows the 6 competencies. So creativity and innovation, cultural agility, critical thinking, effective collaboration, engaging communication, and self-direction. And then as you kind of move up the columns from each of those colored bars, you can see, okay, for 9th graders, the critical thinking outcome that they're measuring is objective analysis versus engaging communication for a 12th grader. They're going to be measured on how good are they at active listening. And there are specific outcome guidelines that the teachers use to measure the students on how well they're progressing towards that mastery of those different competencies.
So that's in essence kind of how they're graded then?
Yeah. And that's how they're graded on their case studies. is how are they doing on these competencies? There's usually a rubric that comes along with it so that it makes it easier for that launch teacher to gauge the different styles that there might be. And then all of that is actually put together in portfolios and a whole web portal, I think we learned about it. So lots of data gathering that goes along with that too, so that they can track their own progress as they go along too.
Aaron, if I may, this is probably a good place to point out the connection to profile of a graduate, which is always over here on the wall, very tight alignment there. And then we've talked about this a little bit, but to me this is evolution, hopefully you can hear it in the language, evolution of I obey to all students at Alburnett.
Yeah, the scalability of this is significant. So we would start with the freshman class, and then the freshman class would continue then all 4 years, and we would add a grade every year, starting as freshmen. So by the time the first class goes through in our seniors, then the entire school would be integrated
So
into
you're
our.
not starting like a 10th grader,
Nope.
you're in the middle of it or anything
No,
like that?
you start at 9th. However, if a student moves into the district, there are tools to help assimilate them to the curriculum.
So
So
the whole class wouldn't be
Right.
going through that process?
they would start as freshmen. And the timeline, the calendar, what this looks like. So the next school year, the 23-24 school year is what they call the readiness year. And the entire year is spent breaking down the instructional model and assisting the teachers in understanding how do I apply this to my classroom, my different subject areas, how are we doing the master schedule? That's usually the big puzzle to put together so that all the students get the launch class, so that they understand that the launch class is where the case studies would be presented, and usually where the students would do their work. That teacher gets a little extra support in how to launch that. And then the other subject areas, they actually meet as professional learning communities to talk through, okay, here's this case study, here are the core competencies that we're teaching in this particular case study, and how can we integrate those themes and concepts into all the subject areas. The other thing I didn't mention is there will actually be a 3DE staff member located here at the district to help with those professional learning communities every time they meet, as well as going into all the classrooms on a daily basis to support the students, the teachers, the integration. They'll be pulling data to help track success and progression for competencies and all of that.
So when they launch, are they with that same launch teacher or instructor or coach all 4 years then? Do they go with them, or is there a specified launch coach that?
That's up to the district. And the district that's part of the readiness year is to choose the launch teacher, although I know sometimes in our conversations, we've kind of penciled some folks in. The different high schools, I specifically asked that question, do the same teachers move with the grade? And it's not necessarily. So since it can change every year, or you could have the teacher progress with the students, it really is up to the district. When we went to Potomac, when they launched at 9th grade, a couple of their teachers moved up to 10th grade to help start it there without the entire 10th grade having to be from scratch. But it's always up to the district.
It's probably a good place to jump into and talk in terms of budget, and I'm gonna stay very general at this point because we've got a year to work more on this, but this is very much using existing staff here at Alburnett.
Right.
And
Yes.
we can do that for a couple different reasons. One, we have staff who already understands the collaborative PLC process and making this happen day to day. Two, for many years now, we've been dedicating part of our budget to providing Iowa Big either partnerships or instructors. That doesn't mean person to person we're talking about the same people. We don't know that yet, and so I don't want there to be assumptions about whose job is what. But from a district budgetary standpoint, you can think of it as just continuing to use your resources. There will be some things like costs of traveling to places to see projects or do showcases or presentations, but we've always had those kind of things in place too that we just take on each year. So I don't think you need to feel this as a heavy, budget weight that you need to plan forward for. You're already there. And I will make sure I meet with Will and Harley so that we all understand that in the transition.
This is actually as an elective type of, it's
No.
not an elective type of class, it's just a change in the way that
It's integrated into all of their coursework, so we don't stop doing like English 9 for 6 weeks. We just have that collaborative time for teachers to plan, where in my lessons does the concept being studied right now just fit naturally? So, yeah. With the exception of the lunch class, but I will tell you, and anytime you wanna jump in, the skills being delivered, while I don't know a ton about it, I can make some assumptions about foundationally, they are the things that we want our students to be getting as foundational information around the 6 competencies.
But this is basically for, it's not just limited on the amount of people, like Iowa Big was
No,
Correct, this is
selective.
to be all of our students. It, to me, really just finally pulls the lever on all the things we've been trying to do through these other programs, all kids.
it's
What's-
inclusive.
Not really matters to us, I guess, but what's the reason that Prairie's only doing a portion of their?
So about half of the partnering schools, and I think there are currently 44, and by next school year, there will be in the 50s across
Yeah.
the country.
There are 44 schools throughout the United States currently
Right.
utilizing 3DE. There are 5 in the queue that are in that curricular mapping year, so it'll be 49 going into next school year, and then we're part of about 5 or 6 more the
Yeah.
subsequent year. And
I think Jack said about half of them are whole school implementation, like Alburnett would be, and about half of them do what they call the cohort model.
just a subset.
Right, and it just depends, every district is a little different in how they're configured, in the curriculum that they're teaching, in like college community with their career academies. So there are just different reasons that they might have left one over the other.
And so if they're going to do partial, is that then an elective then, or not?
No, it is usually, well, it's both, I should say. They are, students are both invited to participate if they wanna opt in, and some students are invited to participate because the district wants them to participate. But it's one of the key parts of 3DE is that it needs to fully represent the school. All, performance levels, academically, geographic, or demographically, so it can't be a subset, of just high achieving students or maybe students that need assistance. It needs to be all students should be represented.
The cohort represents the general population, or it can't be a representative. The cohort has to represent the larger body. And in talking with Dr. Wheeler at College Community, I think they're looking at the first 4 years, to answer your question, Jeremiah. They're gonna do a subset, and then they're gonna evaluate the efficacy, and at that particular time, they could go full school, or remains in the cohort model, and they're intending to evaluate after year 4, when they have that data.
Yeah. Like when we went to Potomac, they started at the cohort, as a cohort model,
Mhm,
and as they were finishing year 3, they're going whole school.
mhm.
So they've made that choice.
And keep in mind that we're not taking away any existing coursework. So as a freshman, in the out year, I'm gonna show up and expect to take all the same classes. I'm just gonna have these new pieces of the curriculum integrated. The exception is just the launch class, which is up to you for scheduling, but we're not needing to do it necessarily as a, like a pilot or small, subset of the student body. It's not disrupting, it's just really enhancing so much their plan.
So with such a high percentage of our kids being open enrolled, I can see this being a really good marketing tool for younger people.
Could
But
be.
is it going to tour high school students that are already through their freshman, sophomore years, that they're looking to transfer here in 11 and 12? Is that gonna, have you seen a trend?
Mhm.
No, not that we've heard at all.
I can't even imagine why it would.
I think it would
Just
be an
because
attractive
that
option.
started,
Yeah.
they're behind on
Mhm.
that whole program.
When we were in Atlanta, we heard one of the girls who was on the student panel for us, she talked about she was a transfer student into the district think she came in as sophomore or
I think so,
junior.
yeah, she was behind on the game a little bit.
Yeah, and she commented that she was so happy that she was a part of it, and that they were able to acclimate her to the process, and that she loved it, so.
So essentially, you can jump in at any time
Anytime,
and still
yeah.
not be.
Yeah.
in
So they just
pieces.
choose on what group they wanna go, because everybody doing something a little different.
No.
At that particular school, they did do
Because
two
they
separate
did.
things, but here they would just be
Right.
It would all be prescribed.
One case study that everybody's working on.
All ninth
Yeah.
grade has the same case study for a period of what,
It goes for about 5
5
That's
weeks?
what I was,
Okay.
all
And
6
then-
case studies don't happen at the same
No.
time.
No,
They're
they are
throughout the- Yeah, throughout
successive.
this
Okay.
entire
Yeah.
year, one at a time,
Mhm.
okay, and it's a 6-week cycle, but 5 weeks they're actually working on it.
And then they pitch.
Right, and then they pitch, so it kind of goes, and that, it's always kind of presented to them in that launch class. And then that's where they'll do their work together
Mhm.
specifically for the case study. But again, even when they're in their English class, their PE class, or any,
Geography,
yeah,
whatever.
they're all learning those core competencies that apply back to that particular case study, so.
So give an example of a case study.
Yep, so the Home Depot one is an example.
Mhm.
So they're given the challenge that they, in this particular one, Home Depot says, okay, we're not getting enough in-store customers to actually buy our products for our kitchen. And so the students are asked to come up with a visual display for a kitchen that meets certain criteria. And so the students in their small groups come up with, they have to do a market study research to find out what are people looking for, why are they not looking for it, or why are they not going to Home Depot. They collect information like that, what draws them to a kitchen, all of those things. And then they actually put together a little model of what they think a kitchen display should look like. And then they present it to their launch teacher and talk through, here's why we did this, here's what we learned. And all the students in their group have to help be a part of that presentation. And then that's where the launch teacher picks, okay, based on these presentations, here's the students that we thought, the teams that we thought did the best.
Can you pull back from the project just a little bit, I think?
Yeah.
It sounds awesome, actually, but you can get lost in we don't teach about kitchen design.
Right.
That's not in our curriculum, right? You need to think about the competencies. That's what they're teaching. So if you pull back from the project, even if it's not the most wow project that would be
Right.
you drawn to personally, or every ninth grader, it's not what we're teaching. We're teaching competencies through, not the read it in a book, turn to your neighbor and talk way.
Right.
through
It's
a
just the
project.
vehicle. So it's the vehicle that they're demonstrating, that they're understanding the competencies, and that they're retaining that information, so. And that's so hard to do in pen and paper.
So you use Home Depot as an example. So are you partnered with Home Depot?
Mhm.
So Home Depot is one of the national
Mhm.
case studies.
So you could have a case study with anybody that partners with you.
Correct.
I think you have a nice graphic somewhere of all your partners. I don't think it's in this
I don't think it's
deck.
in this particular, yeah.
I'll see if I have it here. But what's nice is whether it's a local case partner or a national case partner that may have a local affiliate, it then adds another dimension of career connectedness to the world of work. And corporate partners, community-based partners that are beyond just other ways the community is uplifting and supporting Alburnett. What's nice in each one of these cases, our volunteers do come in the launch class and help support the learning as well. And so we will bring and source, like all of our other junior achievement classes, corporate volunteers to come in and ask questions, challenge kids in thinking different ways, dimensionally, using their critical thinking and analytical skills, and draw those connections, or have you thought of, or this is a real challenge in our workplace, and how would you navigate that? And so whether it's through teamwork or self-direction, they are utilizing that as a learning vehicle only for some of the competencies, and the methodology just utilizes that experiential learning as a vehicle.
One of the things I love too, especially with the professional learning communities, so
Mhm.
since Home Depot was one of the national case studies, and they're usually taught in the same order, so The Home Depot case study is done at the same time in every high school across the country. So when the science teacher is wondering, how am I going to pull this into the science class that I'm teaching right now, they can reach out to any other science teacher at any of the other high schools in the country doing this. Say, how is your school implementing this Home Depot case study in your classroom? And get best practice ideas. Same thing with College Community.
I'm not sure.
Sorry. Same thing at College Community. They will, they're doing the same thing at the same time too. And so when we traveled together to Atlanta, we were already talking about, okay, how can we collaborate just locally in supporting each other with, you know, our different teams.
So when the students are graded on the, sorry, Christine,
No, you're
when
fine.
the students are being graded on like the core competencies,
Yeah.
Mhm.
will they be graded by the teacher as they're assessing their case study? Or will they be doing like another test to see if they got this competency?
It's part of the case study.
It's part of the
That's
case
part
study.
of their culminating event with that. And when the case studies are developed, they're developed in partnership with the 3DE national team. So even local case studies will be set to, the 3DE team helps us lay that out so that there's consistency and so that the teachers have a very specific rubric to measure against. So that they're not having to come up with the work of how do I grade this? You know, it's all as part of the case study design. It's laid out for the teachers. 3DE does that work for them.
What's different than perhaps other instructional models or other programs or content, curricular content that may be sourced, is this is integrated with the 3DE director and coach, as Erin mentioned, embedded within the school. College Community will have their own director of instruction that is supporting those teachers, and in between both of those positions will be a third person supporting the community partnerships and all the case design. And so all three of those individuals will be new positions embedded to support just your school, our other local 3D school, and then our engagement within the community. In addition to that, we will have 3DE dedicated staff members on our professional team that will support the work as well. And so we bring a cadre of people that hopefully will envelop the learning and help make sure that it is designed to meet the goals and objectives of the district in designing what's best for your kids and how they learn.
There's a lot of backbone to this. a lot
Yeah,
of support.
And that's kind of the differentiation.
Yeah, and that's ongoing as long as the district is using 3DE. That's not a readiness year
Mm-mm.
and then you're on your own. No, this is a continuous,
Lives with you.
lives with the district.
Are you seeing interest from other districts that this is kind of taking off, or what sets Alburnett apart from those other, I mean,
That's
why?
a great question, Kayla. I think post-pandemic, truthfully, we did a lot of listening to a lot of our constituents, and we talked with Dr. Trimble and listened to principals and teachers, and we listened to a lot of administration. This seemed to be a tool in bringing back in some of our conversations. Let's dig into more of where that could go. It seems like the direction that we're leaning ourselves and see if there's an intersect. At that particular time, College Community, Alburnett, and Cedar Rapids Community Schools were the three that this really seemed to meet where they were at and where they wanted to go. Obviously, there have been a lot of administrative changes with the Cedar Rapids District, and that's really what suspended our conversations. And we put those on pause, and we will reconvene those at an appropriate time. But in the meantime, we've moved forward with both College Community and Alburnett. Based on my peer group across the country, once a 3DE school begins, that traction has a lot of visibility, and Dr. Trimble knows she has a peer group and they talk. And when the excitement of what is happening and the learning that's being achieved, that's advocated and that will spread, and then it seems that then spreads 3DE within that community. And so right now, you look at Tampa Bay, I'm looking at one of those, I was looking for those national sponsors. I think they'll have 18 schools now in 3 years. 4 years. Next year was third year 4. That's a lot. This is a big undertaking. This entire year, since July, we've been doing due diligence. That's how long this has taken to get to today. And next year really will be curricular mapping, those are my words, simplifying the magnanimous amount of work that Jesse and team will do, to make sure, you know, with Mr. Moritz, that this fits your culture and it's designed to be successful. And then we flip the switch, if you will, and launch it in the fall of '24. So your current 7th graders are your launch class. And they will become known as the founders, the founding students of 3DE. And in both, I've been in 3 districts now where there have been 3D. Those kids have a sense of pride that is palpable. I'm a founder. And then they talk about their personal experience. And that, it gives you goosebumps because you see these kids that are empowered. And they can't wait to launch into life because they feel, no doubt, without hesitation, it's gonna be successful because they feel ready. And that's the difference maker for me.
Yeah, that's what I have taken out of it, is it does prepare them for that business life that we're all, you know, leading, so.
And they're the skills, going to your profile of a graduate, and they're the skills we want all students to have. It doesn't matter the path they go into, what post-secondary option they take, whether it's the military, a trade, or a post-secondary school. It applies to all of them. These are the things we want our employees to have. So that's what I love about it too, is it's not assuming anything, and it applies to everyone.
Some of those, like collaboration, like that, it doesn't matter what you're doing after you're in high school, like it doesn't.
Or communication.
Yeah,
I mean, how many
communication,
times did teenagers not communicate?
Yeah.
So helping them understand what that really means.
Normalizing soft skills.
Right.
Mhm.
It's, you know, there is a huge gap right now in those things. When you look on your page for those competency-based learning, the creativity and innovation, cultural agility, critical thinking, effective collaboration, engaging communication, self-direction, those are life skills,
Yeah.
right?
And I like how it builds every year, you know, and the mastery of it is not assumed, it's taught, so that it really progresses from year to year. So that they don't think, okay, I know what self-discipline means as a freshman. It's very different from a freshman to a senior. And so the expectations that you can have of them change. So.
Absolutely. You know, one of the aspects it's pointed out here in the Tampa Bay overview, the core competencies that we just discussed, those competency-based learning, foster that competitiveness. That's what makes it fun. In the vehicle of the case study, if you will, the case challenge, there is a level of competitiveness, but it increases each student's engagement in that discovery and learning process while they discover their own individual value and what they bring to the table in their own leadership way. And I think it then provides that accelerated academic comprehension. It brings it together with that relevancy piece. And so when I sat here 2 months ago and listened to voice, choice, and relevancy, I'm like, well, here we are. And you add the portrait of a graduate, and you look at those high demand, high growth careers and jobs that we're trying to retain and build for a competitive corridor area. And this is the type of tool or methodology that you overlay with your really exceptional teachers already teaching really great content. It tweaks it to emphasize or be intentional about looking at it differently. And will help provide the training and the tools for them to do that pivot, if you will.
If I were in your seat as a board member, I would see and hear the compelling design. Like, this is a strong design plan. But I also would hear and see, this is JA backed, produced, and that is a reputable foundation to build this on. I mean, we've been partners with JA for a very long time. This is not a new organization, and so the two together, if I were in your shoes and I'd be thinking about new program, all our kids, is this a solid deal? those two things would stand out most to me. Solid design, compelling design, and a strong partner.
In my experience with JA, I mean, even when you volunteer in the classroom and you get the kit, it's like so laid out for you that, I mean, and it's, you know, so I have faith that you guys wouldn't go into anything half, that it would be completely laid out for
That's
our
the nice
district.
thing about both the readiness here and then having the director of learning that would be embedded here at the district, is the teachers are not expected to figure this out on their own. That's provided for them. And we're not asking them to change their curriculum, maybe just showcase different language or integration in a different way without changing any of their other curriculum. So that makes it less daunting for all the teachers to be able to participate.
By the time you do all your prep and you get through the whole cycle, we're talking like 6 years before we,
Mhm.
in ninth
Until you
grade, we
graduate.
go through the whole cycle, right?
We're counting this as year one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so we're 6 years from now before we get all the way through it.
Right.
Yep.
What does that look like for like an evaluation process at the end of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, there's short-term evaluation, and that one of the things as part of the partnership agreement, that embedded staff person is monitoring and evaluating throughout the entire school year from day one. So they're watching to see how the students are doing in those core competencies and how they're progressing through, and are they moving the needle in those different areas. One of the nice things is we're already doing a longitudinal study with Alburnett. We started with the third graders 3 years ago. And so, yeah, current sixth graders. And this will be kind of added into that sequentially. And so that will continue. So we'll not only have the 3DE application as high school students, but we'll also have the build-up from when they were third grade, starting in third grade. So we'll just continue. We'll be able to pull reports and have presentations to you as a district annually, semester. I mean, that's just up to the district on how soon they want that type of data,
And what type of data you're looking to learn.
right?
Whether it's changes in attitudes and behaviors in certain ways, we can pull it and look at it in a variety of.
And one of the nice things too, so the local staff member will be able to have access to that data to pull the information, but the 3DE national team, who are experts in analysis, they're the ones that will actually give you the results. So they're doing that behind the scenes as they go. So
That's part of the.
that local person doesn't have to be an expert in all of it, they just have to help access that data so then the national team can get you local results on it.
And I think, for me, Dr. Wheeler and I connected the dots. Dr. Trimble has connected the dots as well. This is very inclusive. It's every kid, it's every year, and it's at the same price point. This doesn't ladder as we add population. The cost is for the instructional model and the human capital to help execute that, both on both sides of the partnership. And so from day one, it's very transparent, but it's not just for the haves or special populations, it's for every student. And they'll all get something similar out of it and yet unique to themselves, which I think is very empowering.
So let me give you a roadmap a little bit, and then you can kind
Yeah.
of put your little,
Yeah.
however you want to wrap up on it. I sent you some things. You have better context now. Couple videos, so I'd encourage you, if you haven't looked at them, do it now. If you already did, watch them again with this background now, because I think it'll make different sense to you. A couple of the slides you've got in your packet are also in there. In May, we will have an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, on the board agenda. That's not coming out of falling from the sky. We've been working on that for a couple of months. The district's legal counsel has reviewed it, made a couple small suggestions to the 3DE team, and I got the red line copy back, I think yesterday. All the changes as passed are included, so you can look at that MOU with confidence that it's been vetted. For the last couple sessions of planning with 3DE JA partners, some of our teaching staff has been starting to enter the conversation and kind of bringing them up to speed on what this means, so we're just slowly marching through, getting ready for a full planning year next year. A key piece is really your approval in May, though, when you get that MOU. So make sure that you've gotten through all your questions. We can keep doing questions tonight, I'm not suggesting we cut it off if you have more. I'm kind of just wondering if you've hit saturation point and need to think a little bit, though.
You had mentioned budget and personnel and that type of thing, was gonna fit within that budget.
Yep.
But is there an ultimate price tag to
So-
the program?
I'm gonna say no, not necessarily, because when you talk about personnel, it's all relative to their salaries. So I can't tell you it's a $100,000 in or anything like that. And don't take that number and think that's true. It's just an example. We're using existing staff. That's really what I can tell you about
Right,
budget.
but I'm talking about is the program, is there a cost to the program itself?
As
3DE?
as far as like a check we're gonna write to 3DE each year,
That is
doesn't
all
work that
some,
way.
that is all something that, as you design it, it's a $250,000 price point per school. That's our obligation, and we work with the schools to leverage that, and it's designed differently in each district. And that's something that further conversations will vet here, but that encompasses staff. And
Okay, let's make sure that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
if
that,
it's 250,000, that just made some heads explode.
Mhm.
Right, so
that's
you put that
including
with what-
what's already here for staff and.
yes, make sure you hear that's a total
That includes
investment.
our salaries for our.
If we hadn't been an Iowa Big School or been designating for years with Pirate Collaborative toward this type of instruction, your head should have exploded. But we have been, this is part of the way we deliver instruction, done just differently. There will be some things that I can't even put a real dollar amount to as we partner with JA, but when you think about how much of 250 is collectively already staff, including staff that you're bringing to the table for the position names have escaped me now.
Yeah, that director of learning
Yeah.
that would be here at the district, for example.
Yeah, that is not a new Alburnett payroll necessarily, so, yes, there are pieces of it that have to be really combed through to make sure we're all on the same page, but put your head back together. There's no
we're not
reason.
concerned. We're not concerned.
Mhm.
That's our job to be concerned.
I know.
If I'm correct, I think it's kind of ironic that the seventh graders would be founders. I think they were part of our first preschool program here in Alburnett as well.
They were.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they'll be trendsetters.
Yeah. So they're the first
Wow.
preschool program. they're
Yeah,
gonna
that's
be-
right.
The chosen ones.
Okay, lots of
Great.
information.
Yeah, we are, obviously, we could talk about this a lot. Dr. Trimble has our contact information, so if you do think of questions that you would like answered, please let us know. This has certainly been a journey, and it's not easy to explain. So that's where I think those videos help kind of bring it to life in a different way. So please let us know as you have questions about it. But
So ultimately, are you seeing higher scores
yes, significantly.
because of the buy-in, because of
Yeah.
the efforts that you?
This, yeah, the students have a reason to pay attention, and that's like a light bulb for the students, like, you know, the old adage, like, where will I ever use this, you know, this math or whatever. Well, this is the application, this is the relevance for that very question, this is when you will use it, so, and figuring out how it applies across the board.
And next year, there will be opportunities to visit other 3D schools. They do have open houses and showcases. We can make those available, should there be an interest in going and traveling to another 3D school.
Knock on wood with better travel.
Oh, I hope so.
The 2 times that we've traveled to see 3DE with Alburnett colleagues, travel has been bumpy,
Yeah.
and so, 3rd time's a charm. So, our partners up in Minneapolis are at the same place we are right now. Our partners in Kansas City are a year ahead of us. And interestingly enough, because we're on this journey, it sparked a lot of interest over in Des Moines because we are first and they are not, and they won. to know how they can accelerate things, but they'll have to go through the same due diligence that we have to make sure the methodologies.
I was pumping a fist over here.
Sorry, it refers to the table. But whether you go to a 3D school in Los Angeles or in Washington DC or Tampa Bay or Houston or Dallas, it is going to be the same instructional model. They are designed identically because along the way since 2015, they've learned and they've tweaked. And until July of '22, they prescribed where 3DE schools would be available.
They're trying to manage their resources so that they can support.
And I think they were testing different cultural,
Right.
educational cultures to see its efficacy across the country. And what they learned is there isn't any differentiation. So in July of '22, they said, anyone can apply for a readiness year, and that's when we approached them. Because we've had an MOA embedded here at Alburnett for so long, because we've had a data sharing agreement as part of the longitudinal study, we are so far ahead of where other districts have started because our culture has already had these sharing agreements and this trust and this partnership with a dimension that no one else has in the country. And sometimes you're on those calls and we've just kind of skirted through things because they're non-events for us, but they aren't for the rest of the country. They really have to start where we've already been. And that's a prideful thing, and that should be a prideful thing because of how Alburnett's wired and how you partner with organizations like ours. So credit to you, but you guys have kind of, in the 3DE world, and I was on a call today with JAUSA, you're kind of above the fold and called out as best of in class because you're leading kind of that inaugural year in a way they've never seen. So that's been great.
Yeah.
Good fun for us to highlight two of our great partners.
Great, thank you guys.
Appreciate
so
the
much.
time and the opportunity to talk a little more about 3DE.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Erin.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica.
Back to our administrators.
Who's that?
I'll go first. First off, it's nice to get into April, the month of March, in the middle school. One is kind of choppy with the breaks we had, a lot of sports activities going on. So, first middle school track meet was last Friday. I talked to Coach Breck, said that it went well. It was always nice to get the first one done and kind of make some tweaks with the team. So, now that we've got full weeks ahead, kids are back in activities. Really excited to finish out the year strong. The big thing for us in the middle school is ISAS testing. We start that next week. Then I learned that Archery Nationals is also next week, so that's pulling a ton of middle school kids out, which is fantastic. So I'm now ISAS testing this week as well to try and get a whole bunch of those kids in, because soon after next week the deadline approaches to get those in. So that's our main focus, is to get those tests in, and I'm really excited to see the scores, and see how we did, and then make adjustments from there. So otherwise, we're just full systems ahead. Somehow it's mid-April.
Got a little bit of crappy weather, but kind of reeling back in today. I
I
was talking to you the other day, and you said, man, this nice weather is making them crazy.
They a little more ornery. Yeah, they can sense it. I think the sporting helped. They were a little bit calmer, but we'll see how it goes going forward. So.
All right, I just wanted to report, Adam and I were talking today about ISAS, because the high school did ours last week, and we got to kind of talking and laughing, and you're like, in our Alburnett High School last week, we took 663 individual ISAS tests in our high school. You think about that, that's just like, we were talking about that, it just kind of made my mind go numb a little bit with all the kids, what they had to do last week, 9th through 11th grade, and for the most part, they did a really nice job of trying and giving us a good effort, and so I do appreciate that as well. We also gave the conditions of learning survey, which is requirement from the state. Right now, we have 220 out of our 248 high schoolers that have taken that. And so that's just another thing. We're checking off our list here in the month of April. Friday, we got PD coming up, April 21st. One of the things I just kind of want to highlight every time we have a board meeting is something neat and special that we are doing at the high school at our PD. And one of the things we're doing at the high school is Jesse is one of our coaches, and we go around, and our teachers do really good things, but our teachers have a really hard time bragging about themselves. And so I think that's just embedded in an educator. So what we try to do is we call it a share out, and when we see things that teachers are doing really well in their classroom, we have them take about a 10-minute presentation to the rest of the staff to see if it's something that they could use in their deal. And Clayton Rush, he teaches PE here, head wrestling coach, just does lots of things, and he calls it the good sheet. I don't know him, all of your kids probably had Clayton at some point, but he actually has his iPad, and he goes around and he makes comments, and he just calls it the good sheet, and he gives them a score of a 4, 3, 2, 1, and then gives them feedback. And he gave that presentation to our staff probably, it was in the beginning of March, I think, or maybe in February, and I think my whole staff right now are using a version of the good sheet. And so just being able to get him up in front of my 20-some staff members has made a huge difference in what we do and how we're doing things and how kids are being given feedback. And it's just called the good sheet. And I just want to use the board to hear about that. And those are good things that we are doing in our building. And Clayton was like, well, I don't want to give that presentation to anybody, and I don't know if it's good. And I'm like, Clayton, it's good. Just go do it. And now he's starting to see it, and then people are coming to him now, asking him about the good sheet and doing that thing. And it just is a good reflection of what our staff is really like at the high school. It makes me pretty proud to be their leader, and knowing that we've got really good people teaching our kids. It kind of chokes me up a little bit, gets me fired up to be here, and I love that aspect of what we do. So that's a little bit about that, but we have another share out, and Mr. Wops on deck for Friday. So he's got another version of a share out for us. Mrs. Toll and I also have scheduled our classes for the 23-24 school year already, so we've got that all ready to rock and roll. And now it's just a matter of making sure everything's good and can fit into our schedule. But all the kids have picked their classes. It's hard to believe that some of them are going to be seniors already, because it'll be 6 years that I've been in the building, so I've seen them grow from 7th graders to seniors. So it's just been kind of ironic and amazing just to see the amount of growth that they've made. And then I do want to thank David Gilchrist and the Alburnett Fire Department. A couple weeks ago, I believe, our seniors got their CPR training. They also had some Lynn County deputies out there, and they had what they called a free-for-all, where the kids could ask them any questions they wanted, and the sheriff gave his deputies no topic was off limits. So, and Sue said they asked really great questions, and so it was just a nice piece that our fire department does. And then they also added in the Lynn County Sheriff, and then they had a little fire safety deal there, so they had all there. And so all 45 of our seniors were there, and it was just a good day. And then my last thing is, graduation is May 21st. It's already April 17th, so we're about a month away from graduation. So just want to have you put that on your calendar, so we're ready to go and shaking hands and passing out diplomas and doing all that good stuff. We're ready. So that's all I've got.
You gonna be in the gym this year?
Yep, we'll be in the gym, same style, same format as we did last year. With the growing amount of, our band's gonna be about 50. We're gonna have the junior high and the high school band together playing the songs. We'll have the chorus up there, so we really need to spread it out to get everybody in. And it really worked out pretty well last year with having 300 seats on the floor, and then we've got like 650 in the bleachers, so that gives us about 950 full of capacity, and with a class of 45, I think we should be good. if we get to that class of 80, we might get a little tighter in that.
Football
But,
field again.
yeah, maybe. That was a pain in the backside, though. I don't think I'll ever do that
You didn't like
again.
that?
I liked it. I just didn't enjoy the
Stress.
setup.
Oh,
The setup was virtually, well, Dr. Trimble and Guy Trimble were there, and it was a long, long day of.
Well, there's some tough circumstances anyway, though.
They were. It was nice out there, but I think the kids, when they had a chance to bring it back in last year, there wasn't even a second thought. We wanted it back in the gym, and I'm really okay with that.
Sure.
So
I think there was a lot of sunburned foreheads.
mine was one of them. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was about Jeremiah's shirt, not my forehead. So.
Thanks, guys.
Good
Yeah.
job.
All right,
I do not know.
nothing. Board members? Anything? Annie?
Nothing additional tonight.
Really?
It's my great presentation.
All right, how about we get to the consent agenda? Agenda. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, dialogue, actions.
The document that is linked will give you a summary of the tentative agreement with the Alburnett Education Association. And I would invite any board member, if you have questions for any member of the team, it certainly was a team process. I'm working on getting it open, sorry. Here we go. It has been ratified by the association, and with your approval tonight, we would start issuing contracts as we can.
I do appreciate your guys' input on the fly there. That was good stuff. We had some really good conversations around that. Andrew, additional work you guys put into as much, please.
I make a motion to approve the 2023-2024 negotiated settlement with the Alburnett Education Association.
I'll second
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2023-2024 negotiated settlement with the Alburnett Education Association. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Do we want to do the certified, all separate? You should keep doing that separate, or,
Item B.
yeah.
Yep, so item B, I'll open the linked document here. It is customary at Alburnett to transfer that same percentage over to other positions in the district. Every now and again, I have some additional things to highlight for you. So those this year are the elementary principal contract, which you were notified of. That should look familiar. And then at the bottom, this is different. So the teacher leadership budget is an allocation from the state. We use it each year to pay for the salaries of our full release employees and a stipend or an additional contract for each of those positions, and it does fit within our allocation. We have not done an adjustment to that stipend or that extra contract in the 7 years that those positions have existed. They do not increase when you do the percentages. And as we have recently been, well, this is certainly not on Jesse and Genevieve, as we, the administrative team, we're engaging in part of that review process, really reflecting on the positions and what they've evolved into. We feel it's been probably a misstep in a way to not have been evaluating these throughout. So I'm recommending to the board that each of those positions receive an additional $1,000 moving forward. It does still fit within your teacher leader allocation. It is the only categorical that follows the student. So an open enroll-in student does bring their small amount of allocation with them. And so we're very fortunate that we can build out a teacher leader program that's reflective of our student body, which we can't always say with all of our categorical funds.
And just for perspective, it's about $300 a student.
The open enrollment students bring that same $300. motion to approve the 2023-2024 non-certified administrative contracts, or and administrative contracts.
I'll make a motion to approve the 23-24 non-certified and administrative contracts.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2023-2024 non-certified and administrative contracts. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Employee handbook.
I'll save you the scrolling. I have put it up here on the screen to the pages 10 through 12. You certainly can prod Harley if you want any more detail, but high level, what we've done, this is not a change. This is a more thorough explanation of practice in the district, to put it down on paper for her to do her job, myself to do my job, and for all of our employees to know what's really happening around group insurance benefits.
And I do want to highlight one thing, there's slightly a change in the if you go to the last highlighted section, Medicare.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Medicare eligible employees, so, this actually doesn't impact a lot of our employees, but it was brought to our attention in our last, health insurance renewal that it could be an option that we, allow Medicare eligible employees to opt out of our health insurance. So currently, employees who, are paid, the district pays employees benefits for certain categories, so like our year-round staff, our teaching staff, et cetera. And so this would apply to those employees. We would not require them to opt into our insurance. It wouldn't give them cash in lieu, they would just have the option to not. And in talking to one of our employees who is eligible for Medicare right now, it really is frustrating for them to have double coverage. You would think it's great, but it's not. So it really feels like a benefit to those employees to be able to have the option to opt out.
Do you have copy of those employees?
No.
Motion to approve the employee handbook.
I'll make a motion to approve the 23-24 employee handbook.
I'll second it.
So moved and seconded to approve the 2023-2024 employee handbook. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Modifications to the calendar.
The promised conversation about what to do with all of our snow days. I think everyone is ready to get this figured out. So at your places, and I'll put up on the screen for the room, you have two documents. One is just the board-approved calendar, in case you need to think, what does that look like on a calendar? The other is a page of notes that I would like you to put in front of you. It's more important than the colored paper. If you could please switch your pages. Give Erin a notebook, there you go. I'm gonna walk you through what this all means. The state requires us to have 1,080 hours. Lock that in. You currently have an approved calendar of 1,172 hours. Standard for us. That is not unique to this year. So we have 92 hours, technically some would say, to kind of play with, should you choose to. We've missed 10.8 hours due to late starts and early dismissals, weather related. We've missed 46.9 hours for canceling school. So that accumulates to 57.7. We've made up 2 days because they were embedded in the calendar and everyone knew we were going to mid-year. So we can back out of it, the 13.4. We should, according to our approved calendar, be planning to make up 44.3 hours. Well, that equates to the 5 days. The math is not perfect right there because our practice has been miss a day, make up a day. But if you want to rest assured with potentially not returning for a day or 2 or 4 or 5, you start to think in hours. So of the 92 hours you had available as what you might call excess, I'm using that pretty loosely because I never think of instructional hours as excessive, 44.3 of them would potentially be used if you did not return for any of those 5 days. You have plenty of room for this conversation. But important to note are some bullet points here. As I said, past practice has been to make up full day missed, full day makeup. So currently, while many people may not love it, we're all planning on May 30th, May 31st, June 1st, June 2nd, and then returning again for Monday, June 5th. So that's what you're here to think about tonight. Bullet number 2, again, back to how do you wrap into this conversation the instructional impact. We have varying opinions on the value of that time in late May, early June. And some would say instructional time is instructional time, if we lose it. Bullet number 3, I don't want you to miss the fact that if you don't make up days, we have certain employee groups who don't get paid. So that's paraeducators, building secretaries, all of our food service employees, and all of the bus drivers. Now, you could make a mild case for that they've already experienced the financial loss because they're hourly, they get paid when they work in the month. But they also know that there's a calendar potentially allowing them to make that back up, and you need to know that in this conversation. And fourth, that even if they're not student days, 1, 2, 5 of them, whatever, they are still contract days for some of our employees, which is certainly fine. I just want to make sure you and the whole world knows people still come to work, and that's fine. So those are the things we thought might be helpful for you as you weigh your decision on what you do.
This sounds like a dumb question, but how many hours are in one school day?
It's on the top of yours.
6.7.
6.7, we cannot count passing time,
I don't see
passing,
that, I don't see that.
somewhere.
I just did some math, that's 2 days.
Right.
Somewhere in here, yeah, 6.7. So like when we have a 2:30 dismissal on the first 2 days, and it's not 6.7.
It's on the calendar too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on-
It's third box down.
Yeah, it's right here.
Gotcha, yep.
But I wouldn't get lost in the details. I wanted you to know the math. You're not here to fix those numbers. You're here to decide, we're ending on May 26th, or we're ending on June 5th, or somewhere in between. So, don't get caught in those decimals.
I was just curious.
Okay.
What kind of, because essentially we're having the school open for potentially a whole week, correct?
5 days.
But yeah,
Mhm.
what kind of impact does that have, like as a operating cost? Does that change anything? Because you, like you said, there's still,
Nutrition and transportation would be where your cost is there.
okay. So
'Cause you're
those
still
are
gonna
two
have
really
staff
kind of,
there, yeah.
you still have pretty much all the staff would be still
And
be
so the
here.
building's still, yeah.
Still is operating, it's not like the building gets shut down or anything like that.
Actually, it doesn't shut down really
Yeah,
year round.
yeah, okay.
'Cause we're
So really, the only areas though of savings would
I'm
be
sorry.
in transportation and nutrition, if any.
in operating,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
So basically what you're saying is May 26th, if you end on an approved calendar year, we are still above the normal.
The law, the required.
Yeah, then the required.
By 44 hours. Is that correct?
You have to take 92 minus
Yeah,
44.
and then 13 that you made up, so yeah.
47.9.
Well,
There's plenty.
and the 29th is a holiday, that's why that's not in there, right?
Memorial Day.
And then you had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Monday, that would be the makeup days, 30, 31st, 1st, 2nd, 5th.
And that is how it's published and board approved. And so if you were changing that, that's the action tonight. We don't decide. The board approved and published calendar speaks to making these days up. If you don't do anything tonight, we go to school till June 5th.
So if we want to end the school May 26th, you have to make a motion.
Correct.
I guess I'd entertain a motion then to complete the school year with the calendar being May 26th.
I'd at least wanna mix this, the 5th of
I
June.
was gonna say that too.
If we are gonna, continue the instructional parts of it, and try to get all, I know we have excess days, but,
Not come back after that.
but if we are gonna go with, miss a day, make it up a day, I think Monday is kind of, why bother with day?
The
If
5th.
we are gonna keep the days made up.
You're saying not go come back the 5th,
Correct.
yeah.
So procedurally, I would encourage you to continue your conversation. So this is not a rush to a decision. I'm gonna ask Jason to look for a second, because Aaron has a motion.
Did you make a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. It's
Oh, I
been,
thought you said you would entertain it.
Well, he can, did you make a motion, Aaron?
I did make a
I
motion.
thought so. Yeah, but that does not mean you have to go immediately to a vote. Get your second, then you have something that you can discuss, vote it up, vote it down, go with a new idea, amend it, whatever, but let's march through the process.
okay, so there's been a motion made to end the school year May 26th. Do I have a second?
Can I ask a question before that?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you
Oh, it's
made
fine.
a motion.
Yeah, I didn't do that, I just said, the idea.
I said I would make a
We did,
motion.
but that's how he
Okay.
says it. Is it procedural or about the motion?
It's about the motion.
It's up to you, Jason.
Yeah, ask away.
So in the past, this is not the first rodeo that we've had on this. But in the past, we've run into a similar situation.
One other time,
I can remember, and I
Yep.
remember that we did.
some use the phrase "forgive a day," which I don't know that I love that phrase, but just to jog your memory.
If I remember correctly, we still ended before Memorial Day.
Well, I don't remember.
Okay.
It could be.
And 5 years after this, we won't remember what we did either.
We can sure look it up, but I'm not
We
sure
can
we
look
did.
it up, but we won't remember.
Do we have a second?
I kind of agree with Aaron though a little bit too. I mean, I always struggle with what do you, when the kids are already a little rambunctious, what are they gaining by being, here? But then I agree with what you said too, Jeremiah, if we did come back and make up those days that we missed, I would forgive, if that's the word we're using, that the 5th, because I don't think it makes any sense to come back after that weekend again. So. What do you
Your
think?
motion maybe died for lack of a second.
Yeah, I'm looking for a second. Do we have a second?
I'd second it.
Been moved and seconded to end the 2023 school year on May 26th. All in favor?
I would encourage more discussion.
More discussion.
Yeah.
Let's have more discussion.
What do you think, Kayla?
I'm a little bit torn. I do know that they get kind of summer fever at the end there. Is there a reason that we typically try to end before Memorial Day?
The calendar tends to land that way nicely, some years, so there's like a 7-year rotation of the calendar. And we're at a place where we're just about to tip back to where it'll get easier, to just, you kind of get used to that rhythm. And with many missed days this year, 7, and bumping up against a calendar that naturally fell close to ending there, it's just, pardon the pun, but the perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious on your point of view from education as to,
I believe this is a board decision.
So we're really, we know that whether or not we land on the 26th or sometime that next week, we know that the June 5th is out. Is that what we're
Not
saying?
until you have a motion.
We're saying the June 5th, as a board? we're saying June fifth, we're
Does
not
that
coming
need to be
back for that
motion?
extra.
It would, it should, before I
Alright,
make a statement
alright,
like
well,
that.
Well, no, but
I'll make a
if this
motion that
pa-
if, however it's amended, that June sixth.
Okay, hold on, we can't do that, we already have a motion on the floor, so this is just for conversation. Okay, this is just for board conversation, right, saying that we know that if we come back that next week, we're all in agreement that we're not coming back the sixth, or the fifth.
You can have that conversation, I'm not trying to discourage that,
Right.
just,
So, if this passes, we don't have to worry about the sixth, or the fifth, is all I'm saying, so. What do you guys, I mean, what are we gonna lose? Can we get them caught up in the next month to get them gone, to get them out, to get them educated?
When you mean caught up for the
For the
days
hours
we missed?
For the hours we missed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be here no matter what, so I guess that's kinda where I'm at. I think we're gonna do whatever the board tells us to do, I guess is what I'm gonna say. I don't know how to answer if we can get them caught up or not. 'Cause, I mean, I think we do a pretty good job of when we're here and when we can control what we can control.
Let me rephrase, are they gonna be ready for the next grade year?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not worried about that at all. But like I said, I think this is your guys's, we're gonna do whatever you tell us to do, and I'm really okay with whatever you decide.
Any further discussion?
I guess just to back what the motion I made is just a simple fact that, and Danny has said it before, no education extra is too much education, because it's all learning, so I get that. I'm just coming from the standpoint that we're on a Friday, we're honoring kind of what we said we were gonna be at. We are in surplus of the average, so we're doing our part as a school district. You're gonna get the natives back here, and they're gonna be a little restless those last 3 days. You just know that's gonna be probably the way it's gonna go down. So how much critical learning is in the last 3 days? I'm not taking that away, I'm just saying, how much critical learning is in those 3 days after that weekend?
I hope you're not asking. me
4.
that, so-
Well, it'd actually be 4, right, Sharon? Cause it'd be the 30th, 31st, 1st, 2nd.
Yeah, so,
so what you're saying is not wrong, that's the nature of children and May and June and adults, we're all that way in Iowa, we love when the weather turns. If we are in school to one of these dates that you announced tonight, it's our job to hold our professional staff to a standard and an expectation.
Yep.
So that is the only answer we can give to
Yep.
will they be made up or ready, or will they be quality? To the best of our ability, that's what you have us do, and kids are kids.
right.
Maybe we should ask them.
I already was told what to do.
I'll bet you never.
I know there's still people that have plans and stuff, on that weekend and next, so that's just one of those things we're gonna try to stick as close as you can to your calendar.
And ultimately, that's why I think it's a board decision. This is a relationship with our community, and when you announce that date, that's what that is. It's our job to enact it.
And moved and seconded to end the school year on May 26th, is that right? 26th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All opposed, I'm sorry, all opposed? Motion passes. Sure, yep. Aye.
Did you vote?
Yes.
I didn't, we did
Say
say
that.
I just wanted to make sure. You start doing roll call.
Everyone else and then Jason.
a late eye came in from.
All right, we get to approve some seniors that want to graduate.
I'll make a motion to approve the list of seniors for graduation.
I second it.
So moved and seconded to approve the seniors that want to graduate. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? All right, motion passes. Publication of hearing, amend of the 2023, or 2022-23 budget.
So that's our current year's budget. In the past couple of meetings, we've been talking about the future, next year's budget, but this is what we're working with right now. So every month I I attach an expenditures to certified budget report, so you can track every month, like what percent of our certified budget we've used. Obviously, it's a little bit hard to think about, like, oh, we're almost done with the school year, but we're like only 50% of expenditures used on those reports. But that's because a lot of our expenditures come in as a posted at the end of the year, because we pay out our teaching staff through September, but it's all for this current year. So, just so you know when you're looking at that report, that's why I'm asking to amend the budget, but we actually haven't exceeded the budget at this point. This is all about forecasting where we're gonna end this year based on what we certified last year, which, as you know, you certify in April, and you don't actually start the year until July, and so you're really like, it's always like something we're kind of chasing our tail with. So amending is not bad, amending is good, it means that we're really looking at it, and seeing where we need to put those expenditures. So what I'm asking is to amend our total support services line, which includes everything to run a school district except for the teachers, and then our non-instructional programs line, which is our nutrition fund. So the reasons for these changes, you can see the amendment increase $850,000 in total support services. That has to do with some coding changes. I mean, it's like an ever evolving thing from the Department of Ed as to where I'm supposed to code my expenditures. So it really had to do with moving some expenditures out of instruction into support services, and then the Pebble projects that Danny has talked to you over and over again about, and you've approved actually a lot of them. And then non-instructional programs, we actually ended the year last year, right at the end of the year, with some auditor journal entries for the nutrition fund right at $500,000. So then when re-estimating this year, I was like, well, we're probably gonna end it at another at $500,000 at least. So I wanted to get that up there.
What I hear, again, if I were in your shoes trying to think through this, I hear her saying, we're not changing the amount we said we were going to spend. Some of it is moved between line 1 and line 2, where it landed, and where we did, or anticipate spending more, is not general fund, Pebble and nutrition. So that's what I would hear if I were in your shoes.
Yeah, I was a little long-winded about it. So.
No, you did good. No, you did fine.
Good explanation.
So how the procedure works is you have to, we would ask you to approve the publication of the public hearing to amend the budget. Right now, you would approve it, and then I would post it in the paper, and then at the next regular board meeting, you would hold the public hearing first thing on the agenda.
I would say we have amended, for very similar circumstances, the vast majority of years that I've been in the district. It is very common practice for districts.
I'll move to approve publication of public hearing for the amended 2022-2023 budget.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the publication of public hearing, amend 2022-2023 budget. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
One question on that, Harlan, do you post that like in that Lynn County newsletter? Is that
Yeah.
where it goes usually?
That's where all of our meeting minutes are posted as well.
Gotcha.
May 15th is the regular school board meeting, right?
Yep, correct.
And this last item on the agenda, I'm actually gonna walk you through the actual, what's here in the agenda. So forgive me for that, I just wanna make sure you're very clear in case you haven't had time to think about it. So a request has been made around open enrollment, this is, to waive the 90-day athletic ineligibility that exists in code for 2 students. They've already been approved for open enrollment, that is within my authority in this district, and are clear to start yet this semester. Per Iowa code, this waiver of athletic eligibility or ineligibility is actually handled at the board table by the sending district or the resident district, in this case is Lisbon, and the receiving district, which is Alburnett. The waiver is for 2 students, Isaac and Lincoln Stensland, that would allow them to be eligible to participate in baseball this summer, having started with us this spring. The waiver was approved by Lisbon last Wednesday, and as the sending district, to me that means any concerns that probably existed about this scenario have been worked through and approved, so now it comes to you. I'm prepared to talk about procedural questions if you need them. I'm not gonna discuss the merits of the students or playing baseball or anything like that, that wouldn't be appropriate.
How come, usually I thought that they always had, eligibility for 90 days, I never knew that they could actually.
There's a new provision in code that allows for this to happen.
They must be asking it to be waived so they can play for,
Yes.
play for the dad.
So that can be asked by anybody that would be participating in the future.
Under a scenario, yeah, if they were open enrolling.
Yep.
Yep, yeah, absolutely.
But it has to be approved by the school that they left first.
By the school that left first, so some kids, when they do come here, that just doesn't get approved by the school that they left.
But they don't ask, some don't
Oh,
ask.
they don't
Some
ask.
don't ask, yeah.
This
Gotcha.
is a fairly new provision in Iowa code. I would expect that you will start to hear more and more of this, but,
Is it appropriate to ask their grade or no?
it's on their open enrollment papers, it's not inappropriate, I just right now can't think of it.
11.
They're like,
Thank you.
They're both 11?
Current 11th graders.
I think-
Administration would recommend that you approve this waiver.
I make a motion to approve the waiver of athletic eligibility for the 2 young men listed.
I'll second it.
Motion to approve in a second for a waiver of athletic eligibility. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Confirm the date and time of next regular school board meeting. 6 o'clock, May 15th. I guess we just talked about that. We don't have a vote on that, right?
It's been
I always
confirmed.
forget.
It's been confirmed.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I gave them the slip right out.